Hey, also, like she mentioned, my name is Roman Guerrero, and I'm technically the Latin America Tech Service Manager. So that's just a lot of fancy words saying that we're a poultry company. My job is after the sale, people come and complain to me. So that's what my job entails. So it's great that we're actually eating Chick-fil-A because it's a great place to be eating Chick-fil-A. Hopefully all of y'all know that Gainesville is the poultry capital of the world. So I brought some stuff because I try to make it interactive. But my customers, they like hats. So that's what I buy from my customers. So I'm sorry if y'all don't like hats, but I do have 4 hats. Okay. The first hat, and I'll let you choose which if you want the brown or the navy. So there's a road in Gainesville called Jesse Jewell. And I actually had this conversation yesterday. Can anyone tell me why it's called Jesse Jewell? Nobody? Okay, so Jesse Jewell, you think poultry capital of the world, you probably look around, there's a lot of poultry. You got Philadelphia, you got Pilgrims, you got Jack, you got a lot of different poultry companies. But the reason we're called the poultry capital of the world is because Jesse Jewell, back in the day, he was the first person to vertically integrate the poultry industry. So what that means, he had a farm, he had a feed store. And he said, I'm selling my birds to this processing plant and they're the ones making all the money. But I'm doing all the work. I'm just giving them the bird, they cut it up and they sell it, and so then he bought his own processing plant. And then slowly he was like, well, I'm buying the chicks. That's an extra cost. I'm going to have my own incubator. So basically, when poultry is vertically integrated, they control every facet of the industry. So they have their own incubators, hatcheries where they hatch their baby chicks, their own farms, their own feed mill to make their own feed, and their own processing plants. So they control everything. It reduces cost and it makes it more efficient. That's what every company here in the U.S. runs. You look at Wayne Sanderson, you look at Tyson, Pilgrims, which are the big 3 in the U.S. So that's why Jesse Jewell is really famous here in Gainesville. He pioneered that, and that's why we named the road after him. So fun fact, that way when you drive down Jesse Jewell, if you remember, probably not, but I always like telling people, especially here in Gainesville. So a little bit about myself now. Let me see. So the path to the poultry industry. So again, big ties to poultry here in Gainesville. So born in Mexico, immigrated to the U.S. when I was 7, 2004. Most of y'all were born by then or not? I can't keep up with ages nowadays. Probably not. Wow, I feel old now. It didn't used to be like this, but now I'm starting to feel old. So yeah, Myers, Southall, Johnson. I'm pretty sure most of y'all are familiar with those schools, if maybe not Myers, but definitely Southall and Johnson. So that was my path. Johnson's, I really stepped out and branched out a little bit more. So I did GISA there. I believe it's still around. So that's what I did. I did all that, and then I was guided to do an IB. So IB, let's not talk about IB. You're here. I'm happy to be here speaking to you, and I think you're making a great choice. I was fortunate. It wasn't as bad, but looking back, I wish I would have done dual enrollment. So I always tell people, I never tell that to the IB people at Johnson, because they would just be like, redact that from the statement. But so that was my path. Definitely started getting involved. So National Honor Society, Key Club, played football there, did everything. And just because I always enjoyed school, I wasn't the best at it, but I did fairly well, enough to where it takes a lot of effort. So, that's the thing. You got to approach your teachers. A lot of your professors in college, it's the same thing applies. You're going to take OChem, where it's going to go a lot over your head. Calc 2. You're going to take a lot of these classes in college, and you're just going to be like, this is really difficult. This was nothing like what I'm used to. Because especially y'all, you're taking, 2 or 3 classes per semester here at Ivester. So some of you are going to enter college almost as sophomore, if not already a sophomore. So it's going to get really fast for y'all to start taking those upper level, those 3,000, 4,000 level classes. So, but if you're here for a reason. No one forced you to be here. You're here by your own choice, which is great. I think that's respectable. So that's a little bit of my path, but let's talk a little bit more. So with the first gen college, I didn't know what to do. So like I said, I did IB. I was fortunate. I graduated high school with almost 30 credit hours. So when I got to Georgia, UNG, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I was just like, I'll just declare business. That's broad. What do I want to do? Open up another Mexican restaurant right here in Gainesville? Or do I want to go be an analyst for Home Depot or Coca-Cola? I had no idea, but I wanted to keep broad. So first semester went by, it was great. I was enjoying life. And then I tried registering for classes and there was a hold. Because I went business, but I left it open. And I went to the counselor's office, like, hey, I can't register for classes. They're like, yeah, you're on hold. You have to declare a major. By next semester, you're going to be on your sophomore year. And so I was like, well, did not expect that. But funny enough, this is how the story actually happened. When I was sitting, I was waiting for the counselor, and the lady that was the secretary, she was very, very strict about no cell phone usage in that office. I took it out, and she right away, I thought she was going to get a ruler, so I put it away. I just picked up a pamphlet just to read something, and funny enough, it was a poultry science pamphlet. So I was just reading it. So when I got called back, I didn't put it down. I just walked into the meeting, and so the counselor was like, oh, great, you're thinking about poultry, such a great underutilized field. And I was like, what? And I looked down, and she started telling me all about it. She goes, yeah, you know they have 100% job placement. Most kids that graduate with that degree, they have plethora of choices to choose from. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about it. So she gave me a card. It was for Dr. Purvis, who's still at UNG, and she's over the poultry science department. She said, go speak with her. So this was late November. So I went and spoke with her. And January, I was just there last week. There's a huge trade show in Atlanta. It's from Tuesday to Thursday. They have close to 100,000 visitors every year. And literally, if you're in Atlanta last week, it's the chicken people. That's what they call it. If you talk to the locals, we had an Uber ride one night, and they were like, oh, the chicken people. Yeah, it's always busy with the chicken people in town. But she was like, you're welcome to come with us, see what it's like, and you can even interview for an internship. And I was like, I'm a freshman in college. How can you? And I was like thinking, what's going to be unpaid internship? All internships are unpaid. And so I went. I interviewed, and I actually walked out in Atlanta with 4 different internship offers from local companies, so I didn't have to go anywhere. I could stay at home and just drive to work, so it was Pilgrims, Marjack, stuff like that, and it was paid, and really well paid. So I was a college student, I was like, this is great. So I started learning more about it, and for me, the one thing I was looking for was stability, and one thing I always tell people, you think poultry, what are you really thinking? Okay, somebody, please. But what kind of work do you think of?
Oh, like cutting it, like in a poultry farm.
Okay, anybody else? Farm? The smell, okay. So that's very, very common. But this is a huge industry that has to be supported by a bunch of different allied industries as well. It's not just one singular industry. So we'll get to that here in a second. So that was great. I decided this is it for me. I worked at Pilgrims for 2 years for a summer internship, did a great job, got offered to be their second shift supervisor at their feed mill here in Gainesville. So if you drive down in Gainesville by the railroad tracks, there's some feed mills right there. So they were like, hey, let's put this 18, 19-year-old kid in charge of second shift. Why not? So I had 5 direct reports, and I went to school at UNG in the morning, and I worked 3 to 11. We ran 3 shifts a day, 6 days a week. So we pumped some feed out in that feed mill. So that's what I did, and that solidified it. The people were great, got to know the culture, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I like it, it's stable, I want to be close to family. And then so I decided to transfer out to Georgia. It was always a dream of mine to go to Georgia, but when I graduated high school, I was like, I have no idea what I want to do. I really don't want to take out a bunch of student loans and be confused and just have a bunch of debt. So went there, and now I had a plan in mind. I wanted to do poultry science, and UGA has the best poultry science department in the United States, given there's only 6 in the United States. But there used to be a lot more. They've been absorbed by their animal science due to there's not a lot of students majoring in poultry science, because people just don't know about it. So then I did a bachelor's of agricultural science and poultry science, and actually minored in agribusiness management science. So a little bit of business on there. Again, this is where I started getting involved again. So back in high school, like I said, clubs, stuff like that. I was in the poultry science club, so I was secretary 1 year, I was president the next. I was an avian ambassador, so avian ambassador, what that is, you're a representative for the Department of Poultry Science. So I did this a lot when I was in college. I would go to high schools, middle schools, and give presentations of what poultry was. It was a lot cooler back then because we had birds, and I could bring them with me, and typically people enjoyed the birds more than they enjoyed me. But I was also a College of Ag ambassador. So like Jimmy Carter, he got inducted 1 year to the Agricultural Hall of Fame. We actually got to meet with him. We got to speak with him, and it was great. But then I remember Secret Service had to pat us down, make sure we were good to go before we got to meet him. So Sonny Perdue spoke. Hopefully you all know who Sonny Perdue is. Probably not. But it was just a great experience. I had a lot of neat experiences throughout that. And so it just helped me meet a lot of different people, especially in the industry. So I met people like Dr. Broussard, who isn't anyone to you, but he's the national account manager for Merck in the poultry side. Merck is a huge pharmaceutical company, huge. And Dr. Broussard, to this day, I saw him last week. We shook hands, we talked for about 30 minutes. and he still remembers who I am, and he's over Olive Merck, huge pharmaceutical company in the poultry division. I mean, he's been in poultry for over 50 years. I mean, so I met people like that, my department head. Me and him, I texted him yesterday, my old department head, when I graduated in 19 in Georgia, because his soccer team was playing against my favorite soccer team. And I was like, how you like that loss? I had to talk a little bit to my old department head. So that's one benefit that I really enjoyed, because a lot of students that go to Georgia, and every school, they always tell you about these huge lecture halls, 300 students. I remember when I was in poultry science, I had classes that had less students than this one, where that can be also troublesome because some universities require a minimum of like 10, 12 students. So it's this small, close-knit group, and you get to know your professors. I had dinner with two of my professors last week as well. I mean, you have these connections for the rest of your life. So that's one thing I always looked at when I was going to college, because I had friends that were also first gen, and they got lost in the mix. So that's one piece of advice that I always tell people is always look at the culture of what environment you're going to be in. Are you going to be in a huge 300 lecture hall where the TA is going to be the one grading the assignments and not the professor? Or are you going to be like me, who gets the professor's phone number the first week and you're texting by the fourth week of semester? It was just a great opportunity, but it was definitely difficult doing all that as a first gen. So definitely lean. You have a great department here that you can ask for help. I mean, I know my sister just a couple weeks ago, she applied to UNG right here on the spot and she got admitted, I was really proud of her. And stuff like that, I wish I would have had access to, because I remember when I was filling out applications, I had questions, I would go ask my counselor or a teacher. I was like, look, I have no idea what I'm doing, can you help me out a little bit? And so definitely ask for help. You definitely want to do things best for you. So now a little bit of day in my life. So I have 3 things I do typically with work. I do technical training, installations, and warranties. So technical training, Chore Time, we're a poultry equipment company. So if you probably see chicken houses all the time living in Northeast Georgia, we can house all those chicken houses with any type of equipment you can think of. So fans, feeders, heating, controls, any type of equipment that can go inside of a chicken house, we sell it, we install it, we service it. So I have a counterpart that takes care of the selling, and I take over after that. So technical training, and I'm Latin America's division, remember that. So what I mean, learning to be a teams master. On Wednesday this week, I had a meeting with Avi Grupo from Mexico. I had a meeting with 15 other bigger employees, and I was showing them this control. And they wanted me to show them all the capabilities. So I have a simulator right here on my computer. Ideally, here in the US, what you would do is just drive your demo, you take it to the customer, and you present it to them in person. So you'd walk up to them, there's the new one, you would open it up, show them the processor, you can show them how this is a touchscreen like a phone, it has a night mode, a light mode, it controls all your feeders, how many feed times you can have. You would do all that. I'm limited because that will typically take 2 hours of your day. I really don't want to take a 5-hour flight to go down to Mexico, do a 2-minute meeting, and then fly back another 5 hours. So I've had to learn how to do meetings all through Teams. So teaching someone how to pipe size, so propane pipe sizing for heating inside of a chicken house. I had to do a class on that a few weeks ago. And first I had to learn. So I went to one of my colleagues, I was like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? We spent a whole day doing the math. And then I was like, great, I understand it. And then I had to set up a meeting and do the same thing. And that's very difficult, but that challenges you. But that's the fact of the day nowadays, especially after COVID. You saw how much stuff went online. You're gonna have to adapt. So that's one thing that I've had to do. Previously, in my previous roles, it was here locally. When I was at Cobb, I was a service tech, so what that mean, I had farms, I would go check on the birds' health, their growth, their production. I was right there hands-on. Nowadays, if I'm here at home, my customers are all thousands of miles away. So you have to learn how to adapt a lot. And so that's one thing that I recommend whenever you're doing anything, you have to be willing to adapt. So installations, long commutes, what do I mean by that? Sunday night, I have a 10-hour flight. I'm gonna miss the Super Bowl, super sad night. But I have to fly down to Santiago, Chile to help out with an installation for 3 days. I'll be there for 3 days, and then Thursday morning, wake up at 2 a.m. to catch a 4 a.m. flight to go to Argentina and be with a customer by 9 a.m. So the customers ask things of you, and you're expected to fulfill them. So I could easily tell the customer, look, I don't want to get up at 2 a.m., but he wants to meet at 9 a.m. I was like, there's a flight. I can make it work. But that's also a very important role of my job. We sell equipment, we want to make sure it's installed correctly. So we have a chicken house, they don't install it correctly, it's not going to work correctly, it's just going to cause issues down the line. Better to install it correctly the first time. So that's what I mean by long commutes. So, but then other times, I just walk across the hallway to my home office. So it cancels out, I guess, like PEMDAS. Warranties. I sometimes have to be Sherlock Holmes, or try to be. People call me, hey, this doesn't work. And I can't just tell them, okay, I'll send you a new one. Because when you're talking about the international shipping, it's a lot more complicated than just putting a UPS or FedEx box and shipping it away. I have to deal with customs, all those other stuffs. And so I have to find out why it happened, and hopefully that way we can avoid it happening again. That's the biggest issue that I run into. People just tell you, this broke, I need a new one. And they hate it. I'm always like, why did it break? What happened? Did you wire it correctly? Was it doing anything abnormal beforehand? And I start asking these questions. They're not used to it. They're like, why is the new guy like this? But then what I've noticed, there was just a lot of repeat. I analyzed the data from the past 5 years of all of our warranties, and a lot of the stuff was just repetitive. We're allowing people to do the same issue and never corrected it, and we were fine with just shipping them a new one because it was a fast fix. You gotta make sure you solve the issue at the root. But so here's a drawing of a typical broiler house. There you go. Yeah, you can see it. So what I mean, we have evaporative cooling. So that's just cool cell pads that you run water under. When the water runs under, it's going to cool down the water. And it's all tunnel ventilated in poultry. So you're going to have air coming in through here, and these are going to be exhaust type fans. We call them tunnel fans. They're going to be exhausting the air. So they pull the air down, because what you're trying to do is take the heat off the birds to make them comfortable. So I'm pretty sure you all heard about all this animal stuff. The reality is we try to take care of the bird as best as possible. The better the bird does, the better we do. I mean, that's an investment for a lot of people. So that's why we have all this technology. We have inlets that whenever it's not too hot, we just want to mix the air. We don't need to, especially when they're baby chicks. Baby chicks cannot regulate their internal temperature. So we need to heat this house up to 95 degrees. Imagine how expensive it is to do that in the middle of winter. For example, 3 weeks ago when it was like 10 degrees for a week straight, and someone wants to heat up a 500 by 50 foot house to 95 degrees because the birds can't tolerate, they can't stimulate their own body heat. And then times like that, so we want to keep the house sealed and shut to maintain all that heat. But you can't also do that 100% of the time, because then you're going to have stagnant air, a lot of carbon dioxide is going to build up, and might suffocate the birds. So we've got to circulate the air. So we have inlets that throw air in, mixes new air with the old, and then we'll have one or two fans turn on just to take out all the air, introduce new air. So that's part of technology. Feed lines, so we can feed birds with chains, we can feed them with troughs, we can feed them with pans. Heating, this is what the inlets will look like from the outside, the inside, and the control. That's similar to our CT2. So we have 4 different types. CT1 was built back in the 90s. CT2, early 2000s. CT3 was early 2010s. And now our Catalyst is our newest controller, and it's 2020s. So as you can see, we're coming out with a new controller about every 10 years. But this is just a broiler farm. So if you like Chick-fil-A, this is where your Chick-fil-A comes from. Now we have our breeder farms. The only difference, a lot of the same principles, but we're gonna have nests. Guess what a breeder farm is? Anybody?
We just make the chicken.
Exactly. We try to keep it pretty simple. So we're just gonna have male and female birds in there, and that's where we get our eggs, so we can ship to our hatcheries and we can get more birds. So that's the only difference we're gonna install. All the broiler farms are gonna be all on the floor. On these, we're gonna have slats. But I just wanted, that way you can get an idea. All right, so why ag? Remember we talked about earlier a little bit, we touched on it when I asked, what do you think about ag? I asked that a lot of people, especially here in Gainesville. They tell me the chicken trucks, the processing plant, because that's what you see mostly of. But ag is not just farming. For example, in the state of Georgia, $25.2 billion contribute to the economy. And I mean, billion. I still can't wrap my mind around how much $1 billion is. So that's our state's biggest industry, by far. So what I always tell people is think outside the farm. Yes, when you think about poultry, you're thinking about the farm, the chicken trucks, the processing plants. But you're gonna need vets. Any of y'all wanna be a vet? What is everyone here thinking about doing? I know Lupita, last time I talked, she said she wanted to be a dentist. I'll put her on the spot.
Computer science.
Computer science? Okay, that's a great field. This has a lot of computer science involved in it. We have AI tied into this now. So AI and chickens, who would have thought? Anybody else?
Sports physical therapy.
Okay, I don't think we're gonna give physical therapy to our chickens, so we might lose you, but we'll try. We'll see if we can give any therapy to some birds one day. Anybody else? One more?
We may have some undecided.
Undecided?
People that are undecided.
So this would be a great option because if you're undecided, like I said, vets. So I had a lot of friends when I was in college of ag that wanted to be a vet. UGA's College of Veterinary Medicine only takes 100 students a year. Only 100 students a year. And from the state of Georgia, only 50 can come from the state of Georgia because other states don't have a vet school. So the state of Georgia has to allot students for the other states. So I had 5 friends that wanted to apply to the vet school. Guess how many of them made it? All 5. With their poultry science or avian biology degree. Because with this, you're preparing hands-on. One memory I have from college is UGA, as far as I know so far, is still the only school where undergraduate students can perform surgery on a live animal. So I remember we had to intubate a chicken, open it up, and put not a tennis ball, a little ping pong ball inside its oviduct. And then it formed an egg. And then if the chicken successfully put that ping pong ball inside of an egg, you passed. And if it didn't, you failed. But you have to do this. You have to intubate the bird. You have to make your right gas mixture. You have to make sure it's down asleep so it doesn't feel any pain. You open it up. You do everything very carefully. Then you stitch it back up. And that bird has to be held for 2 weeks. So I remember for 2 weeks, our class, we had to divide up how often we were going to check on the bird and what we were going to do in case we saw any signs of stress or anything. So I remember I would be at the building at 10 p.m. on a Saturday night just checking on a chicken, make sure it was still alive. Because did we do surgery correctly? Why did anyone let me in this class? So think outside. Nutritionist. I have 2 friends that are nutritionists. One of them works for Cargill. You all hopefully know Cargill. It's right here locally, but it's a huge private company. The other one works for Alltech, an Irish company. But they're formulating diets on how to feed these birds. Again, these birds, we take care of them. We try to find the best diet possible. We look at the vitamins they need, the minerals, the protein, the carbohydrates, for them to be as efficient as possible. So that's what they're constantly doing. And it would be easy if you had a stable supply. But you gotta look at your corn, for example. Corn is one of our carbohydrates. The dryness of it will impact how it performs. Marketing. I had a couple friends that went into marketing. You gotta market this chicken. That hormone-free stuff. I'll be honest, it's one of the things I hate the most about poultry. I hate it. There never was any hormones on chickens, but Purdue, back in the day, was like, hey, what if we put this on our labeling, that we're hormone-free? And they're like, sir, everything's hormone-free. Yeah, but the public doesn't know. So Purdue put it on their labeling. Their sales went up. So then what did every poultry company do? Also slap it on there, because then they're like, well, everyone's going to think we're half hormones. I did a study when I was in college where we actually gave birds hormones. And for them to work, you have to inject them every day. So I injected a pen of 50 chicks every day for about 4 weeks. We divided it up again in our group labs, and we had to go and inject birds with hormones. They perform worse than the birds we fed with the traditional diet and normal environments that we currently do, because they were just getting more stressed. It's getting handled every day, picked up, injected. I mean, think about it. Giant picks you up, injects you with something every day, and then puts you down. The other guys are just hanging out, eating whenever they want, sleeping whenever they want. So marketing, that's a huge marketing thing that Purdue did. And so we always need people to market this chicken. Legal, you're always gonna need legal. Had a friend that went to law school also. And one of the mentors that I had when I was at Wayne, he's over all their law stuff at Wayne Sanderson. Third biggest poultry company in the US. They have to have their own lawyers. They have to have their own legal stuff. HR. You can still go into HR. If you understand the business a lot better, you can administrate everybody a lot better. So accounting. Our GM at Chore Time, she came from accounting. So she's over Chore Time. And she went and got her accounting degree. She was an accountant for 15 years. Then one day they approached her. He's like, you're really good. We want you to do this. She goes, I don't know a thing about chickens. I said, we can teach you. So accounting, because at the end of the day, it's a business. We're still going to have, and this is just a couple things I threw off people that I knew personally. There's a lot more. So anything you can think of, like I mentioned, allied industry, equipment. That's why I'm here. So now I got some questions for y'all. We got some more hats. We still haven't given away a hat. First question, how many pounds of chicken do you think on a typical day in Georgia are processed? Throw me a number. 600.
Pounds? Oh, pounds? Are you saying pounds?
Yes, ma'am. It's in the millions.
Yeah, say,
I think it's a lot.
that's a lot.
No, okay, not that much.
Oh, wait, all right, so we, all right, lower.
Double digits. I'll give y'all a hint.
10 million. No,
How much?
10 million.
Higher.
Higher.
72,
Lower.
30.
50,
50? It was 31.
30.
30?
30.
Okay.
30? Oh, Alex, you'll get the next one.
Which one do you want? Brown? That's what my customers like. Hats. Every time I go international, they're like, did you bring us hats? I'm like, gosh, y'all are killing me. So yeah, oh wait. Oops. 31 million pounds of chicken. So that's a lot of chicken, and that's just in the state of Georgia. But also, fun fact, if Georgia was a country, it would also be the 7th biggest poultry producer in the world. So Georgia is huge in poultry. Because you got you would have US first, Brazil second, Mexico would be up there. But if Georgia, by itself, tiny little Georgia was a country, it would be the 7th biggest producer of poultry, broiler meat. So think of all the Chick-fil-A you always eat.
Right here, guys.
All right, I think I went a little bit too fast. Hopefully not all of y'all saw it, but how many eggs do you think we're producing every day?
31.
How many did you say?
They said 31. So these are eggs you have for breakfast. So if you love omelets, you know, soft boiled egg like I do in the morning.
Alright, how many?
I don't know.
I'll take 3 and we'll do the closest.
Okay.
70 million?
Raise your hand, please.
Is it a million?
Yes, it's in the millions.
70 million right there.
Okay, 70 million,
32.
32.
2 million.
54 million?
So it's actually lower than that, 7.6.
7.6 million.
Which one?
On eggs.
The brown.
Brown. Wow, this one's popular. The reason we're not very big, the Midwest usually dominates the table leg industry. So you go somewhere like Iowa, Minnesota, they're gonna have a lot more. Here we don't really have a lot. And usually these are gonna be a little bit more away from everybody else because it's not rare for you to have 15 million birds in one farm. And that is, but again, remember this is 7.2 million per day.
I may have to stop for 1 second. Does anybody leave at the 11:45 bus?
Don't miss your bus.
We don't want you to miss your bus.
All right, I'm almost done. How about hatching eggs? How many birds do we get every day? And don't try to guess. Oh, I had one kid argue one time. He was like, well, you have 31 million pounds, so 31 million hatching eggs. We're not raising 1 pound birds here. You have birds 4 pounds, 7 pounds, and 10 pounds. That's the typical bird weights we process. So. But again, 3 guesses.
3 guesses. We've got some more hats. I mean,
Hatching eggs.
How many hatching
How
eggs?
many-
How many baby chicks do we hatch every day in Georgia on average?
It's in the millions?
Oh yeah, it's in the millions. But
Millions. How many?
all right, go.
I'll give you a hint. That way it can be a little competitive. It's closer to the table eggs number than it is to the meat eggs.
Okay. What you got, Esther?
17 million.
17 million?
Alex?
5 million.
5 million? Someone I haven't heard from.
Alex? What
In the back?
11.
11?
11?
So we had 11, 5,
17.
17. 5.8.
What won? Who's the winner? Winner, chicken
Oh,
dinner.
say 12. Okay.
Winner, chicken hat.
So 5.8 million baby chicks every day in the state of Georgia. So that's what I have for y'all. I just wanted to talk about, make sure y'all know the importance of college because I enjoy what I do, being tech service for Latin America. I never thought I decided to do poultry because I wanted to be here locally. I said, well, there's plenty of companies. And now, like I said, I got a 10-hour commute on Sunday night. So it's funny how life works out, but it's great. Because me being bilingual, this is a role that not a lot of people could do. I remember I was approached by Chore Time because they heard about me. They were like, hey, we heard you graduated poultry science at UGA and you're bilingual. And I was like, yes. They're like, well, can you read and write? And I was like, yes, sir. My mom made sure I learned. I got home from school and it was school 2.0. It was horrible. I hated it. Everyone else was playing. I was inside learning how to write. But now I'm very grateful for what my mother did to me. Not to her, but to me.
She did do too much job.
But it's really interesting. And all day I think in Spanish. And then all day when I'm home, I think in English now. And I love it. My vocabulary has actually improved, I think, the past year. Because when you talk to engineers or vets, nutritionists, or CEOs, their vocabulary in Spanish was a little bit better than mine, just from speaking at home with my parents. So I was like, I gotta get a little bit more formal. So anybody have any questions about anything? College, poultry? I can speak chickens all day.
You have like any like tips, or can you talk about about getting the first internship you got when you were in college?
So the biggest thing is, what I told people is be willing to work. Because I remember they had a project and they were telling me everything I had to do and I didn't have a negative. So they were like, hey, we don't know what you're going to be doing this summer yet. It's either you're going to be in the processing plant or you're going to be in the feed mill. And I was fine with anything because I just wanted to learn. I went there to learn about the poultry industry to that trade show in Atlanta my freshman year. I didn't know much about the poultry industry. And that's the approach that I took. But one thing, I did prepare. So expect your typical HR questions. I went on the company's website, it was Pilgrims, and I looked up their vision, their mission statement, their values, the core values. So I learned about the company a little bit. Because they're going to expect you to look up, at least spend 30 minutes to look them up. Because they're going to, what do you know about us? Is going to be a question that I got all the time when I was looking for internships. And if you then prepare, you're going to be like, well, I know you're a poultry company. Okay, well, what value do you align the most? I remember I had questions like that. And just doing some quick preparing a little bit beforehand. I mean, I think that helped set me apart because they saw that I was taking initiative, wasn't waiting for them to ask me questions. And just don't be afraid to ask them questions either. Because that question always comes. Even when I applied for this role, I remember at the end of the interview process, they were like, well, do you have questions for us? Always have questions. You're always going to have questions. Don't be afraid to ask. That's what they're there for. They're not going to think bad of you for asking. Because trust me, somebody else has in the past, and how are you supposed to know things if no one has ever told you?
I love that you mentioned that being bilingual was helpful. Yes. Because I think that our kids that are bilingual, you guys don't realize what a huge asset. It's a huge asset. Yes. Like my kid, he's gonna have to learn Spanish in school, and then he's still not gonna be bilingual, right? Mm-hmm. But you guys have a gift, I think, if you are bilingual, that I think sometimes you don't realize. Because no matter what industry you're in, they're always looking for people that can, communicate with larger groups. They want to increase their market, right? So they want people who can help them communicate with everybody. Especially in Gainesville, being bilingual is huge. And so don't, please use that. Y'all keep that going because I think that's a huge asset.
Nowadays, almost every business you'll go into is a global market. We don't just sell in the southern hemisphere. We're in Asia, we're in Europe, we're in Africa. So we have individuals that will speak Japanese and then English, and they're based out of Japan because I would not want to do that commute every week. But so we have offices actually set up in Vietnam. I'm fortunate enough where I didn't have to move into the market because I live an hour away from the Atlanta airport. I can just hop on a flight and get down whenever I need to go meet my customers. But again, this was a role that I didn't think I was qualified for. When they approached me, I was like, me? But the gift of being bilingual limited. And they're like, look, from what we know, you're a go-getter. You like to learn. You're not afraid to try new things. We can teach you the equipment. I knew the bird real well. I took poultry health class, physiology. I had to learn how the chicken gets vitamin D synthesized from the sunlight. It's not easy either. It's a 15-step process, and scientists don't like short words. I like short words.
They do not like short words. You're right.
So it was really, really difficult, and you had to write it out step by step. And so just stuff like that, physiology we took. Endocrinology, oh gosh, don't even get me started. So I felt really comfortable with the bird, but now you're going straight from the bird to the equipment only. I mean, it was a whole shift for me that I had to learn. It was a big learning curve, but it was a gamble that I took, and I was confident in myself and my abilities, and also the team that I was going to have around me. My team consists of 4 other people, and between them, there's over 180 years of experience. So, 5 people, but they're all close to retirement. So, we need new, younger talent.
Yes, it's a big field, guys.
But yeah, so here I have my control. If you want to come play with it, I can talk to you a little bit more. But this is how we control the chicken houses.
Okay, y'all keep an eye on the time
Yeah,
in
if-
case you have to go.
If you're on the bus, don't
11:15.
miss the bus.
Yeah, but any other questions?
Yes, Nestor? Nestor?
So, when you're traveling to like the different countries, like besides work, you get to like travel and like explore the countries as well?
I try to if I have the time. It all depends on what we're doing, because at the end of the day, I'm only going down there for 4 or 5 days usually. Sometimes I'll fly down on a Monday if it's somewhere in the Caribbean or Mexico, but if it's South America, it's usually a 10-hour flight, 8-hour flight, so you're flying overnight, so I'll fly down on a Sunday. One of my favorite trips, and probably will never be topped, I spent 2 weeks in Barbados. The owner of the poultry company was also the owner of several hotel chains. So I got to stay at an all-inclusive beachfront. So it was great. It was great. It was the benefit of the work. So I would get home, not home, but I would get back to the hotel around 5 o'clock, and I had a resort that I could do whatever I wanted to. And it was great. When I was in Bolivia, we went and worked, and we were done at 5 o'clock as well. And then we went and went around the city, went to really nice restaurants, and just got to see some of the culture. So as long as you have the time. This week, I'm trying to fit 2 different countries in 5 days. I'm probably going to be working closer to 12 hours a day just because I'm trying to knock them out as much as possible, because I got to go back on the 24th to Peru and spend a week down in Peru. We have a really big project going on there. We're installing 10 houses, and it's the first time they install this product, so it all depends. I try to always sneak something in though. So when I was in Mexico, I went to Mexicali. I flew into San Diego. I made sure to go to In-N-Out, because so it's just small stuff.
I have a question. So, can you, if you feel comfortable, could you talk about a range of salary, like when you started versus as you progressed with your degree?
Yeah. So
The internship, he had a paid internship.
so when I was at Pilgrims, I was making around $20 an hour as an intern,
And that was year,
that was around 2017.
so now it's maybe even, it would be even more than that.
Probably. They take care of you. The companies will take care of you. And a lot of places, a lot of these students, well, maybe they went to NC State or Auburn or Mississippi State, A&M. So if you get an internship here in Gainesville, they'll pay for you to live here in the area. So when I was doing my internship for Wayne Farms, my junior year going to my senior year, I had a friend, she went to Florida. And she was right here for Wayne Sanderson. So they paid her, they got her an apartment right here in Gainesville for 2 months. They paid for her. Then they gave her a stipend to eat and do everything off. And then they also paid her. I didn't get the stipend because I'm going to go home and eat. And I was like, wow, you're better off. I should have told them I wanted to go to the Dothan plant. But that was just an added benefit. So that was that. So a lot of students, poultry industry, when I graduated, the average going rate was 40 to 60,000. So that's what I saw with a lot of my peers. It all depended on the role you were going to. Processing is typically longer hours and harder work, in my opinion, because you're over a lot of people. Whereas the livestock, when servicing birds, you're just over yourself. You're responsible for yourself. So it all depends on what career path, what company you went with, and where you were relocating to. So some of these plants are really rural areas. There's not a lot to do, so they got to compensate for that because they know it's going to take more to get you out there. Or it might be the vice versa. They're going to tell you, well, the standard of living is lower here, so we can afford to pay you less. So definitely look at your options. I mean, I remember when I graduated college, I had 6 job offers. So, and I just based it on what I wanted to do: stay home, salary, benefits, all that. Because at the end of the day, it's not also about just the salary, it's benefits as well, stuff like that. I've changed roles 3 times now. So I went from working at Wayne Sanderson, Cobb Ventures. Cobb Ventures is a great role because I was servicing birds. It's a poultry genetics company. They're the ones that provide the birds for everybody else. There's 2 companies, Avigen and Cobb. And so we sell the birds to everybody else. So I was just servicing birds, like I said, checking the health, making sure they're growing. If they were sick, we would administer vaccines to them. So I expected a pay bump, and I got around a 20% pay bump. When I went to this role, again, now you're traveling. Companies do look at stuff like this. You're gonna be away from home. That's a sacrifice you're making. I have friends who are tech service here in the US locally, and they just drive a couple states over. They have 3 or 4 states to take care of. So if they travel, they can always get home in a couple hours. For example, when I go to Peru, there's 1 flight per day. You don't catch that flight, you're waiting until the next day. So if something were to happen, I need to get home ASAP. It's gonna take me sometimes 24 hours to get home. So I got it was about 40% pay bump when I changed roles. And that's one thing that I looked at, but for me the biggest thing was just expanding my knowledge a little bit, because I know I can always just go back to poultry if I ever want to. I'm confident in my role as poultry tech service. I know the chickens. I enjoy the bird side of the business. Now I'm branching out a little bit and learning a new side of the business. But yeah, salaries, it's all about what you make it. I have friends that have stayed at the same place and they've just gotten raises year after year, and they're doing great as well.
Yeah. My brother-in-law just retired from Barjack Poultry that's here. He's been there for 35 years. And when we retire from teaching, we get a clock, a little clock,
If
you
you're
know,
lucky,
if
yeah.
you're lucky. He got a new truck.
Oh.
Yeah, they take care of them.
Yes.
They take care of their people, I'm telling you so. Yeah, they're watching.
Okay,
Yeah.
as long as they're watching.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we mentioned
We don't have
it.
anybody on the 1150 bus, right?
Nobody needs to be on the 1150 bus.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Oh,
Question.
you got a question for our brother. Here you go.
Since I don't know, how many countries have you been to, like, in total?
I haven't kept track, but last year I went to Panama twice, Barbados once, sadly, Dominican 3 times, Bolivia, Jamaica. I went to around 6 or 7 different countries last year. This country, just this month alone, I'll go to 3, Argentina, Chile, and Peru. Last month I was in Mexico, and I'll be repeating those countries pretty routinely this year. We have a lot going on in Argentina. Their economy has improved greatly in the past couple of years, and now they're investing a lot in aged industries. So their poultry industry, they still have chicken houses, but they just weren't efficient. Now that they have the capital to invest in their infrastructure and invest in their industry, they are. So we expect a lot of growth in that market. Peru's a really good market right now. So that's how I look at it. I have to look at how every other country is doing. I watch the politics of every country. So last year was huge for Mexico because they had a new president. And we were going to know, well, how's that going to affect us? Because we're shipping this stuff. Tariffs, that's the thing I looked at. When they were going to have a strike on the ports, we were deadly afraid of that. How are we going to ship all our stuff? Customers are expecting this. But this year I'll probably go to 10 different countries. I travel at least once a month, if not twice a month. I try to limit it to that because I like having a week home. But like right now, my schedule's set up where I'm home and traveling 1 week off until the end of April. And that's because I just haven't made my schedule that far in advance.
So when you're at home, are you working?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm working from home. So I have my home office, just answer emails, have meetings. My days are usually a lot of meetings.
Do you have a question?
Yes, how many years did it take you to graduate from University of Georgia?
So I got my associates from UNG in 2 years, and then I also graduated from Georgia in 2 years. I was going to graduate a semester early, but then I decided to get my minor in agribusiness, and that way my cell miller and everything also qualified, because you have to take certain credit hours. So I was like, do I want to pay for 1 semester out of pocket, or just do 2 semesters, get it paid for, and also get a minor, and still graduate on time?
And did you do any dual enrollment?
I did IB.
You did IB?
Yes.
You have an IB diploma?
Yes, ma'am.
You went in with some credits, but y'all are going in with
A lot of credits.
So it is possible that you could do Georgia in 3 years if you get what you need here, all your core.
Yeah, because you're looking around 15 credit hours per semester. And so I usually always took 1 class per summer. The College of Ag usually offered one of the easier classes over the summer as well, whereas you read an article, you wrote a discussion post. That's when I did a lot of my business classes. My internships were actually considered a class every summer. So I did 3 different internships. I got 9 credit hours just for going to work. I just had to give a presentation on what I did, 10 minutes, easy breezy. So that was great. A lot of colleges will also do that. They will, you got an internship, well, let's make it a class for you. Thank you.